So now we'll move on to the next form of cirrhosis, that is alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency causing a cirrhosis. So first of all, this alpha-1 antitrypsin, it is one of the protein which is synthesized in the rough endoplasmic reticulum within the hepatocyte. So usually deficiency of this will lead to the release a deficiency of this protease inhibitor, and that is one of the most important etiological factor which causes a cirrhosis. And patient with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, due to the deficiency of this protease inhibitor, they'll also present with the lung condition, that is emphysema. Usually it follows a autosomal dominant inheritance, and these are the genotypes with protease inhibitor with which is novel. With this, it shows a 50% of activity. So usually these patients with the alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency associated cirrhosis, usually this is the histological picture which shows both micronodular and macronodular type of cirrhosis, wherein the hepatocytes, within the hepatocyte we can see the presence of intracytoplasmic or intracellular acidophilic, which are pass positive hyaline globular inclusions, which shows positive for pastime. These are nothing but the globular inclusions which we can see in patients associated with alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency associated cirrhosis. And purely, most of the patients will present with pure cholestasis. So other miscellaneous form of cirrhosis, under that, the cirrhosis which occurs because of the metabolic disorders, that is galactosemia and other form of glycogen storage disorders. So wherein galactosemia, it is associated, which is of follows autosomal recessive type of inheritance. There is an excessive accumulation of galactose and galactitol in various parts of the body, especially in liver, brain and lens of the eye. So clinically, the newborns which are born with the condition of galactosemia, they fail to thrive. Vomiting and diarrhea will be there, jaundice and hepatomegaly, cataract, as there is excessive accumulation of this galactose within the lens, mental retardation, that is 6 to 12 months, aminoaciduria, which is the classical feature, and they might present with septicemia. So these changes can be prevented by removing galactose from a diet. So this galactosemia, it comes under the metabolic form of metabolic disorders. This comes under the miscellaneous form of cirrhosis. So this is one form of a cirrhosis, that is Indian childhood cirrhosis, which is exclusively limited to the Indian subcontinent. It most commonly affects children less than 10 years of age. Usually it is fatal. The etiology, it can be query viral infection or query toxin with abnormal copper metabolism. One more thing which has to be remembered in Indian childhood cirrhosis, morphologically, it follows the 5 stages. One is ballooning degeneration of hepatocytes, and then it's predominantly it is associated with the formation of Mallory bodies, which were explained in alcoholic liver disease. And there is a creeping type of fibrosis, leads to the micro or macronodular type of cirrhosis. Usually in Indian childhood cirrhosis, microscopically we can see the excessive accumulation of copper within the hepatocytes, which are more in amount than seen in a Wilson disease. So this is a post-necrotic cirrhosis, which is also called as macronodular cirrhosis, which most commonly the causes are, this is one type of cirrhosis which follows a viral hepatitis, that is 20 to 25% of hepatitis B virus infection, C virus infection, phosphorus, carbon tetrachloride, mushroom poisoning, acetaminophen, alpha-methyl dopa, or even end-stage alcoholic disease can present with this post-necrotic form of cirrhosis. So usually this is a gross picture of the liver, which is showing the post-necrotic cirrhosis. As it is a macronodular type, we can see the presence of macronodules which are more than 3 millimeter in size, and usually in this type of cirrhosis the liver appears distorted and it weighs less than 1 kg, as because it is of non-fatty chain associated macronodules disorder. So this is a microscopic picture which we can see both the predominantly of macronodules which are separated by the thick fibrous septa with the minimal inflammatory infiltrates, and most commonly this post-necrotic cirrhosis will predominantly follows the 4 stages. One is nodular pattern, along with there is a thickened fibrous septa with the necrosis and with the excessive inflammatory infiltrates. So one more thing which comes under the post-necrotic cirrhosis is only drug and toxin-induced liver disease. As we know very well that liver is a major organ for drug metabolism and detoxification. So this hepatic injury can be occurred by, as when there are some drugs which can cause direct toxicity to the hepatocytes, or while they are getting converted to the active toxin or through immune mechanism. So these are the few drugs like tetracycline, acetaminophen, anti-cancer drugs which are which can cause a reaction or induce a liver disease. Unpredictable can be methyl dopa and sulfonamides. Liver changes, it is like these drugs can cause hepatocytic necrosis, cholestasis, that is pure cholestasis, and insidious liver dysfunction. Clinically and histologically, this can be indistinguishable from viral hepatitis. There are other form of cirrhosis which are not so important, like still it should be known, that is cardiac cirrhosis, which most commonly occurs because of right-sided heart failure. It might be other causes, can be constrictive pericarditis, and especially the patient when they have this cardiac cirrhosis, morphologically there will be a central vein necrosis, is also called as central hemorrhagic necrosis. So cirrhosis in NASH, it is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which most commonly it involves both males and females in an equal predilection. And NASH, as we know, this cirrhosis in NASH, it occurs most commonly in a non-alcoholics, where those who are having a higher risk for obesity, type 2 diabetes mellitus, and dyslipidemia. Another form of cirrhosis, it is cryptogenic cirrhosis, where nearly 10 to 15% of the cirrhosis, or 2 to 3% of the cirrhosis might occur because of a unknown etiology. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the various causes causing a cirrhosis. It can be post-necrotic, alcoholic liver disease, and due to the iron overload, or the secondary biliary cirrhosis which occurs because of the gallstones. And this is one type which is autoimmune diseases, which most commonly involves females. It's also called as lupus type of hepatitis, which causes a cirrhosis, predominantly due to the production of autoantibodies. or antinuclear and ANA antibodies. ANA antibodies. So death can occur because of cirrhosis, cardiac disease, or as many of the patients with the cirrhosis can progress to hepatocellular carcinoma. And the prognosis, normal life expectancy if diagnosed in a pre-cirrhotic stage, and it can be treated. So the last topic is the portal hypertension. Portal hypertension, it is defined as the elevation of the hepatic venous pressure gradient to more than 5 millimeter mercury. As we know, all these portal veins doesn't have a walls, so if there is any obstruction within the portal vein, proximal to the obstruction will cause us an increase in the pressure. So the two important factors exist in the pathophysiology of portal hypertension is there is a vascular resistance and due to the alterations in the blood flow. So the vascular resistance, it most commonly involves the increased intrahepatic venous pressure. So which is one of the most important thing, which is proximal to the obstruction, will increases the pressure. So the causes of portal hypertension, depending upon the site of vascular obstruction, it is classified into pre-hepatic, hepatic, and post-hepatic. So under the pre-hepatic causes, most commonly it's a portal vein thrombosis. Portal vein thrombosis is the most commonest cause. Another one is pancreatitis. So this is a portal vein thrombosis. So as the portal vein doesn't have any valves, so any obstruction proximal to the obstruction, it leads to the elevation in the pressure. And compression of portal veins by any cysts like hydatid cysts, which is most commonly occur within the liver, or any trauma, or even any hypercoagulable state. So under the intrahepatic causes, it's been classified into pre-sinusoidal, sinusoidal, and post-sinusoidal. So under pre-sinusoidal, it can be any schistosomiasis, congenital hepatic fibrosis, sarcoidosis, myeloproliferative diseases, drugs and toxins. Sinusoidal, as one of the most commonest complication where the patient present with the cirrhosis is the leads to present with portal hypertension. So sinusoidal causes cirrhosis, fatty liver, any metastatic malignant disease, and post-sinusoidal is veno-occlusive disease. So under the post-hepatic, most commonly due to the right-sided heart failure, leads to the stasis of blood as there is no valves in the portal within the hepatic venous system, so it can cause increase in the portal venous pressure. Another one is hepatic vein thrombosis, that is Budd-Chiari syndrome, and one more cause is constructive pericarditis. So with the background of these causes of portal hypertension, the clinical features are sequelae, which follows in case of portal hypertension is, the first and foremost is ascites. So ascites is defined as accumulation of excessive fluid within the peritoneal cavity. Most of the ascitic fluid will be transudate with specific gravity of 1.010, and the pathogenesis, which is not depicted in the picture but it's given. Pathogenesis is most commonly It is due to the decreased plasma oncotic pressure and increased intrahepatic pressure. And one more thing is hyperaldosteronism. So hyperaldosteronism, most of the patients with cirrhosis, there is an increased secretion of aldosterone by adrenal gland due to the decreased blood flow to the kidney. So that is one of the pathomechanism which is involved in causing a ascites. Another one is hypersplenism or splenomegaly. So the enlargement of spleen in case of portal hypertension, it's also called as congestive splenomegaly. And the next sequelae is there is increased portosystemic shunts. Shunts are nothing but the collaterals or varices. So when there is a portosystemic shunts happens or the collateral happens, so these are the clinical signs in which the patient present due to the portosystemic anastomosis or collaterals. The first and foremost is caput medusae, which occurs at the site of anastomosis at umbilicus due to the anastomosis between paraumbilical veins and superficial veins of anterior abdominal wall. This caput medusae is nothing but these are the dilated subcutaneous veins which radiate from the umbilicus. This medusae is named after a snakehead medusae. So the next clinical sign is internal hemorrhoids, which occurs at the site of anastomosis at rectum due to the shunting between superficial rectal veins, which is portal, and middle and inferior rectal veins. And another one important clinical sign is esophageal varices, in which the patient will present with hematemesis at the site of anastomosis is at esophagus due to the anastomosis between the gastric veins and the veins of lower esophagus. So this is a picture which is depicted, that is caput medusae, where there is a dilated subcutaneous veins which are radiating from the umbilicus. So this is another picture which is showing the presence of esophageal varices. So this is another picture which is showing the esophageal varices. And one more thing which has to be explained regarding the other two clinical sequelae of portal hypertension is hepatic encephalopathy and hepatorenal failure. Hepatic encephalopathy, it's due to the portosystemic shunting. There is a metabolic dearrangements which leads to the organic brain syndrome, that is only called as hepatic encephalopathy, which can be seen most commonly in the patients of the latest or the final stages of hepatocellular failure. So usually these patients with the hepatic encephalopathy will present with the disorientation and the flapping tremors. So the last clinical sequelae of portal hypertension is hepatorenal failure or hepatorenal syndrome. The patient with the with the superimposed infections and with the later stages of cirrhosis, they might present with this hepatorenal syndrome. So these are the few clinical signs or sequelae of portal hypertension and few clinical signs of portocaval anastomosis has to be remembered. Thank you.